us a background on your on you, or like how did you start in martial arts? And
Okay, sure. My name's Mike Clarke. I'm 66 years old. I was born in Dublin in Ireland. My family moved to Manchester in England when I was about 3 years old. So I grew up there. That's where the accent is a Manchester accent. When I was a teenager, I lived in a really rough neighborhood. So growing up, there was quite a lot of violence around on the streets. And then when I left school as early as I could, 15, no qualifications, nothing. So, and I was a typical angry young man. Looking back now, I'm not sure what I was angry about, but I was angry and at everything, and took that out. Used my fists and everything to do that. So I got into fighting in the streets. I spent a few years fighting in the streets all the time, and real savage fighting, not two punches and then we're best mates again. So that led to lots of arrests by the, I was arrested by the police and court appearances and fines and everything. And then when I was 17, I got stuck into 3 guys who'd beaten up a retarded brother of a friend of mine. And so I got stuck into them, and that led to me being arrested for GBH and ABH and all sorts of sort of grievous bodily harm, actual bodily harm, wounding stuff. It was a whole thing. I just went mad with the 3 guys, and that resulted in a 2-year prison sentence. So I actually spent my 18th birthday in one of England's most notorious prisons, Strangeways in Manchester. It's a grade A prison. So, for like mass murderers and people. So that was in the early 70s, 73, around that time. And that's when Bruce Lee and everything hit the airways in England. I didn't know anything about it because in prison in those days, you didn't get to see the television. You didn't know what was going on outside. So you could get a visit once every 2 weeks, and then in the week you weren't having a visit, you got to write a letter. So that was your only contact with the outside world. So I didn't know anything about Bruce Lee or anything like that. When I came out on parole, all my friends were into karate and kung fu, and everybody was doing it. So my background fighting and everything, I didn't see much in this. I thought it was, I saw a few of the movies, and I thought, no, what they're doing, it's silly. But anyway, I got invited by my best friend to go along to the karate dojo he was training at, and I thought I would go and beat the instructor up. That was what I got on the bus to do. But I saw him when I got there. He was sparring with one of his brown belts, who was a paratrooper, a military guy in the British Army. And they were sparring and they were getting stuck into it. So I thought, I'll probably not beat him up. I wouldn't have been able to, but that was the thought, was like, oh, well, okay, maybe I'll just hold back on that. And so I got introduced to karate that evening, really liked it, wasn't very good at it. Couldn't understand.
What kind of karate was it?
It was Shitoryu, Shukokai, so Tane Hashitoryu. So they had things like double hip twist, and they had things going on in their ankle, what they call shoulder shock, shoulder shock, and I can't remember what it was now with their ankle, that they spring their ankle off, and so it's to develop a whip-like action, and I couldn't do that. My idea of punching was to ram my fist down your throat. So all of a sudden there was all this technical kind of stuff, and you had to learn stuff. So I found that very frustrating. But I liked that in those days too. There was lots and lots of sparring, because I don't think people really, you know, with the best will in the world, I don't think the level was that great as far as depth was concerned of knowledge. So we spent a lot of time sparring, and I like that. I like the fact that you could have it wasn't a real fight, but you could get stuck into people, and everyone getting, you know, fat lips and broken noses occasionally, and, you know, cut eyes, and it was quite rough and tumble stuff. And not just in the dojo I was in. That's just the way it was then. Everybody was in, they were getting, you know, bruised bones and legs and everything, and it was quite rough and ready. So, but I enjoyed that bit. And slowly I got to enjoy the fact that when I could start doing things right, I thought, oh wow, okay, I can do this. And then I wanted to do, you know, get a bit better, and then get a bit better. Excuse me. And so that's how I got into the karate. But the more you got into it, then there were tournaments and things as well. And then I thought, oh yeah, now you don't have to take it easy with your mates in the dojo. You could go out and suck some guy who you didn't know, and you'd never met him, and you're not going to meet him again. So you could get into it. And there, quite a few of the early tournaments, you know, they had to pull people apart because it got a bit too heated. And so again, I quite liked all that. So then for a while in the late 70s, I got onto the Shokukai World Karate Union team for England. And so that meant traveling to Europe as well and taking part in tournaments. So I did that for a couple of years. But by that time, then I was getting a bit fed up of the sports side of it. And you see stuff going on with refereeing, and you become aware of all the politics within organizations and stuff like that. And that was always a bit of a downer for me. And I thought, I didn't like this. So that's how I got into karate. But my switch to Gojira came about because a friend in Manchester was doing Gojira under Higona Morio Sensei, and we used to train together. You know, I had friends then who did Shotokan, Gojira, Wadaru, and I was doing Shitoryu, and we would train together a lot. You know, whenever we were just mates, we all did different karate, but it didn't really matter. We'd all spend hours and hours sparring, and then one of us would, you know, say, okay, let's do this kata from my style, and then we'd all kind of learn that, and then take it in turns to do stuff like that. And it was just training, and we would, especially on the weekends on a Sunday, we could be there 6-8 hours, just, you know, getting lost. We were all young guys, and just training. So it was, you know, that's how I got into Gojira, through my friend John, and he let me know that Higona Sensei was coming to England to do courses, so I went along on one of those 3-day course in Liverpool. Yeah, I really liked what I saw him doing. So so that's how I got into Gojira, because I didn't meet Higona Sensei then. You know, I was in a hall with 300 other people. So, you know, but I was made aware of his training, and that appealed to me. And I was at that time also getting a bit fed up of tournament, and my Japanese sensei at that time, Tomiyama Sensei, had gone back to Japan on family business, and he spent about 3 years away before he came back to England. But by the time he'd come back, I'd already made my mind up that I didn't really want to continue with Shitoryu. And I always had this thing about Higona Sensei, the training we'd done. It wasn't so much Shitoryu against Gojira and Shitoryu, it was just the kind of training It was the approach to it, the fact that he grabbed people by the ears and the hair, and he choked people and things like that. Well, he didn't do anything like that in Shtoryu. It was all very clean cut, punching and kicking and blocking and stuff. So anyway, the upshot of that was the following year, I was in Okinawa. I got to Okinawa and was searching for his dojo, and standing outside his dojo, knocking on the door. And that's how so I got to Okinawa first time in 1984. So yeah, so that was it. And I trained there for a couple of months, and then stayed with his organization for about 6 or 7 years. But again, I don't think organizations are very good for karate. They're good for the people at the top of the organization, but they're not very good for karate. And so, I couldn't help it but fall foul of the leadership of the organization. And so, even though I had a good personal relationship with Higono Sensei, there were people who were busily working to make it awkward. So in the end, I just said, you know what, it's better that I'm just not here in the organization. So that's what I did. I left the organization, and then didn't just kept training. And by that time, then my wife and I had moved to Australia. And then I had a friend who was connected with the Jundokan, with Miyazato Sensei, and he'd actually lived in the dojo for 6 months. And he said, well, why don't we go arrange to be in Okinawa at the same time? I'll introduce you to Miyazato Sensei. So that was back in early 1992, I think, something. So then that's when I joined the Jundokan with Miyazato Sensei. So, and I'm still at the Jundokan now. So although Miyazato Sensei's been dead a long time.
Differing in opinions on how similar and how connected Higono Sensei and the Jundokan are. Did you notice much differences between them, or?
I think if you know what you're looking at, it's easy to see where Higono Sensei's karate's come from. It's easy to see the basic template, but Higono Sensei spent a lot of time in Tokyo, and I think he, quite naturally, as you do, you get influenced from other people around you and things like that. And so Higono Sensei's training was always for me, it had that touch of Japanese training about it, where it was full on all the time, lots of, physically very demanding, thousands of repetitions, lots of kion, stuff like that. Even the kata changed to be much more strength put into and power put into various things in the kata, much bigger movements, stuff like that. But so I would say now that IOGKF karate, Higono Sensei's karate, is a particular kind of Gojira, and even though Higono Sensei came from the Jundokan, that was his background, I don't think it could be. I don't think what the IGKF people do now is the same, anywhere near the same as what Jundokan people are doing. But that's not to say it's bad or better. It's just different, I think.
So I guess along the way you were also. When did you start your writing career? So people don't know that you've written several books. You're writing for magazines, and is that sort of occurring concurrently with the training, like you?
Well, what happened was, after that first visit to Okinawa in '84, I got back home from there, back to England, and already through my Shotokan friends, I'd been traveling once a week over to Liverpool, about 35 miles away from where the city I lived in, to train with somebody called Terry O'Neill, who was a very famous Shotokan teacher, and he was, you know, he was a big guy, he's like 6'3" or something. He was a like huge bodybuilder. You know, so I would go over there and train in. He had a black belt class on Wednesday nights, so I would go over there on a Wednesday night with my Shotokan friends and training in there. Now Terry also had a magazine called Fighting Arts International, and at the time it was probably the best martial arts magazine anywhere in the world, because Terry was not only a really serious karate guy, but he wanted to have this magazine that was really something, you know, not just full of tournament results or somebody writing in about, you know, their dad getting their brown belt or something. So he set up this magazine, and even now, you know, it's considered one of the best magazines, karate magazines, martial arts magazines that ever came out. And so I got back from Okinawa, and I was training at Terry's on a Wednesday, and I told him, you know, I just got back from Okinawa, and he said, oh, will you write something about that? So I hadn't written anything since leaving school, you know. So, but I said, yeah, okay, I'll try. And so I wrote some, you know, I wrote like a dear diary, really. It was nothing. It's just, you know, what I did and when I did it, and blah, blah, blah. So, but that was received really, really well, because back in those days, not many people had made it to Okinawa, apart from Americans who were there because of their service in the forces. But not many English people had made it to Okinawa then, and the ones who had mostly been Uechi-ryu people. So that was received really well, because there's people in England were hungry for, like, wow, here's a guy who's been there. So then Terry said, oh, that was, you know, that was very popular. Would you like to write some other stuff? So I did, and then he said, oh, well, there's a sensei coming down to the part of England you live in to do a thing. Would you interview him? So yeah, okay. So I did that, and then it just kind of snowballed, and you know, like a lot of things in life, you kind of find yourself doing things that you had no set plan to do, and that snowballed, and then that got really well, and then I got contacted by editors of other magazines, and they would, you know, would you like to do this? Yeah, okay. So then I ended up with a monthly column in 2 different other English magazines, and yeah, and it just snowballed. And then there was stuff in America. I don't know if people remember Budo Dojo magazine from California, and there was American Samurai, and there was all sorts of other magazines. And so, and then I moved down to Australia, and then so Australasian Fighting Arts was the biggest magazine down here at the time, and so they had contact with Terry, and they got in touch, and so I started producing work for them. And then the other big magazine was Blitz magazine, so for a long time I did things for them. And then there was a couple of magazines in New Zealand, the same thing. So it just kind of all, you know, kept me busy, really. But, you know, in a way it was good that, because I could finance my trips to Okinawa on the work. My early trips to Okinawa were financed by, like, one trip I sold my car, another trip I used to have 2 very, very old Japanese swords. One was the blade was dated 15 something, and another blade was dated at 17 something. And so one trip I sold one of those to go, and then a few years later, well, you know, then I had some money and stuff, and so I could keep going. But then a few years later, I sold the other sword to go when I didn't have enough money to go. So I would do things like that, and to go. But then with all the magazine work, what I could do was set up interviews, and I could also write feature articles about the training and stuff like that. So I would go to Okinawa in the daytime. I would meet with people and interview them, and then in the evening I could go and do my training. So I would, you know, I would have to pay the money out to get there, but knowing that I could sell all that work when I got home, it was already pre-sold. They wanted it already. Excuse me. So then I would make my money back, and then I'd have the same money to go next year. You know, because all the money I had, it was the same pot of money. I used to just say, spend it, go to Okinawa, get the interviews, sell them all off. That would build up that pot again, go back the next year. So it was good. It was a good way to do it. So that's how I got into writing, and then the books kind of followed on as a consequence of that, I think.
I was wondering, like, what made you decide to write the books? Like, you just, there wasn't enough material out there, or you just had the idea? Or?
The first book I wrote was autobiographical, and it was just an extension of that first article I'd written for Terry, because I wrote that out, and that was just like saying what I'd done and everything. So I thought, oh, okay. And the only books that are around at the time, there was a book called Moving Zen.
Yeah, I met Nicholas.
Well, yeah. You met Mr. Nicol. I think he's died now. But yeah, anyway, yeah, you know, there was his book. I'm talking about English. There might have been other books in other languages. I don't know. But at the time, there weren't that many karate books anyway. And the ones that were all about techniques and stuff like that. But to actually have somebody's story was quite rare. So I'd read that, and I'd read another book about the history and traditions of Okinawan karate. So that, you know, that was telling stories of all the sensei and stuff, not just about techniques and things. And that kind of, it was real people's real lives, you know, and that interested me. So I thought, I wonder if I could do something like this. By that time, I'd only been training for 10 or 12 years or something. I don't know, not very long. But I thought, you know, it'd been an interesting time. And so that's what I did. I just wrote it all down, and then I decided I'd see if I could, because there was no self-publishing in those days. There's no computers around. It was all done on a typewriter, you know. And so I approached a publisher of a magazine, another magazine in London called Karate and Oriental Arts, which was a fairly well-established magazine in England back then. And I knew the publisher of that magazine also published books. So I sent this manuscript to him and asked if he'd be interested. He was interested. He picked it up. I got the book deal, and that came out. And then he did another book where I did a book of interviews with people. And that came out, and that was quite good. And they sold okay, quite well. And then on the strength of that, but you know, I didn't have a great relationship with that publisher on a personal level. So I looked one day I had an idea about Hojo Undo. There seemed to be nothing out there about Hojo Undo. And so I just thought I'll put something together about Hojo Undo. Not as an expert, because my experience was that, you know, almost everybody on Okinawa was doing Hojo Undo, right? Regardless of what organization you were in or what style, even the Shorin-ryu people do Hojo Undo. But I thought there's nothing out there in English about it. Not that I knew of. So I did
when you wrote that book, was it primarily from your education at the Jundokan about how they do the Hojo Undo, or is it a mix? Or
well, no, mostly from the Jundokan, but I was introduced to Hojo Undo at Higona Sensei's dojo. So before that, I'd hit a Makiwara, but very infrequently. In Shitoryu, I knew about Makiwara very infrequently, but I got introduced to Makiwara properly by Higona Sensei, and I've still got the scars. But yeah, and all the other Hojo Undo, because she's dojo, they trained in that quite frequently and quite seriously. So, and I really like Hojo Undo. I like working with the different Kigurada tools. So when I thought about that book, I really just thought, and my first, it's the book actually an introduction to Hojo Undo. It was never meant to be like the Bible of Hojo Undo, because it's endless. You can think of all sorts of things to augment your training. So, but I just wanted to have something out there, because I realized there wasn't anything out there, maybe the odd magazine article here and there, but it just skimmed the surface. So I wanted to add a bit of history. I'd learned from conversations with Hokama Sensei and visiting him about some of the history of where these things came from, and talking with Higono Sensei and with people at the Jundokan, where these things, and I thought I could package this and put a bit of history in there, so how they came about, give a few basic exercises with each one, and that would be something that somebody could sort of find their way into that kind of training with. It was never meant to be a training manual or the be all and end all of Hojo Undo. So, but it was received really, really well, and it's still the best-selling book I've ever written. It's still selling very, very well even now. And I wrote that in 2009, I think. It was published in 2010, and it's still selling very well. So, which I'm glad about. Not for the money or anything. I'm just glad. I'm glad that there are people out there keep discovering Hojo Undo, and then going on to develop their own and stuff. But at least they've got an introduction to it now, and so that's how the Hojo Undo book came around.
Maybe we could go to Kobudo. When did you start training in Kobudo?
Well, Kobudo came about. I did a little bit of Kobudo in Shitoryu, but I'm not quite sure if it was traceable back to Okinawa. It was Japanized Kobudo, if you know what I mean. But anyway, when I did Shodan in Shitoryu, I had 4 Kobudo kata in my head that could have been called up to do. So I was familiar a little bit with Kobudo, with the kon, the bow, nunchaku, sai, and tonfa. But looking back now, I don't think it was. It was quite modern interpretations, I guess. That's a way to put it. So, but that thing of Kobudo had always been in my head. I quite liked it, but it's like everything else. It's one thing to want to do something, but you need to find a teacher. Grabbing things off YouTube and the internet is just too shallow and too one-dimensional. It's not enough. Not if you want to know the thing. If you just want to remember the movements and go silly in an open space, YouTube's fine. But if you want to learn something, if you want to really get any depth, then you need somebody who knows what they're doing in front of you, to show you, to critique you, to nudge you in the right direction, to pull you back when you're going in the wrong direction, all that stuff. And I'd never found one. And then one day I just happened to be in the Shiredo store, and Tim was in there. And like you do in Okinawa, especially in the old days, you didn't see that many foreigners. So when you saw another Westerner, you said hello. And we got talking, and then he said, "Oh, I do Kobudo." And I said, "Oh, I'd like to interview somebody who did Kobudo, but I don't know anybody." And as you know, you need an introduction. You can't just walk in. So he said, well, I'll have a word with my sensei if you like and see. And he did. And then he called me up that afternoon and he said, yeah, you know, he's happy to meet you. And so we set up a thing. So I went to the Shimbukan, the old one that doesn't exist anymore. And I met Akamine Sensei. We had a good chat, and then we set up for an interview and took some photographs, and that went down really well. And we got talking, and I said, oh, I'd really like to try it. So he said, well, come back tomorrow. There's training tomorrow. Come back tomorrow and try it. So I thought, okay. So I went back and tried it, and, you know, hopeless, absolutely hopeless. But liked it. You know, I liked the idea of it. And everyone else was doing bow kata, and I was just swinging a stick around. You know? But I thought, no, this would be good. I was interested in it. And so I asked, could I come back again and train properly? And he said, yeah, if you like. So the following visit, you know, I came, and then I divided my time between training at the Jundokan when the Shimbukan was, because the Shimbukan also teach karate. So, but on their Kobudo nights, I'd go to the Shimbukan, train Kobudo, and then go to the Jundokan on the other nights and do my karate. And so that was 2006, I think, 2007, somewhere around that time. And so I've been doing it ever since. So I've trained every time I go to Okinawa. I divide my time between the two dojo and do that. So and I'm lucky in that Akamine Sensei has never pushed me to join his organization or anything like that, which is, I'm really lucky about that, because I don't have to become involved in all that other stuff. I can just go. He's happy to receive me. He's happy to help. You know, and we're about the same age, so I think he's about 6 months older than me or something like that. Not much difference. And we get on very well. He's a very amiable person.
Oh, he's super nice.
Yeah, and actually on my last trip, when I was there last time, when I may have told you, I was on the monorail coming home from the Jundokan, and he pulled up in some station, and the doors opened, and he stepped in. He stepped in through the doors of the train. I went, oh. I said, how are you? And he looked at me, and I hadn't met him back. I'd only been back about two days on the island, so I hadn't actually made contact with him yet. I'd phoned the dojo a couple of weeks earlier to say I was coming, but he wasn't there. He was actually in Australia, funny enough. And I'd spoken to his sister, and his sister didn't speak English very well, and my Japanese is hopeless. So although he passed a message on that he got a phone call from Australia, she wasn't able to pass on who it was from or anything. So it was a big surprise that I was there on the train. So we had this great chat for a little while the train trundled along. And then I said, oh, well, I'll see you tomorrow night at the dojo. He said, yeah, come on, it'd be good. So that was it. So, yeah, so I always train there. I love going to the dojo, and, you know, I love that freedom I have of not having to go along with the agenda. You know, it's a personal relationship for me. It's a friendship. You know, I don't know if it's a friendship from his point of view at all. I wouldn't speak for him, but for me, I like him. I like him as a person. He's supremely gifted with what he does. I don't know whether he's the best Kobudo guy on the island or anything, but I'm not interested in it, who's best and who's not best. His skill is marvelous. He's a really nice guy, and I get on with a really nice man, and I get on with him very well. And he's kind enough to help me with the Kobudo, and I like doing Kobudo, and I keep doing it. But I've got no ambitions to be anything. I still wear my white belt when I go. I've been invited to take promotion tests a couple of times, but I've always managed to, get my way out of it, because that's not what I'm there for. I'm not there to have a grade in Kobudo. I'm still doing the same stuff. I don't do many kata. Train about 8 kata, and that's it. It fills its space in my life, and I don't want to be anybody in it. Like I don't want to be. I'm not anybody in karate either. I don't want to be anybody in this stuff. It's I've got other things to do.
So I'd like to ask you your opinion about Kobudo and Karate. Like some people only do Karate, and some people. I haven't met too many people who only did Kobudo. I can't really think of any. Do you look at it as sort of like supplementary, or do you look at it as different, or how do
I see it? Well, I've heard people say, oh yeah, my Kobudo helps my karate and my karate helps my Kobudo. I think maybe on some level it might do it in the sense that if you've been training for a long time in one of them, you've got some skill with your body, you've got some familiarity with how you can move your body around and stuff like that, and that may help you with the other discipline above somebody who hasn't been training and still hasn't got great control of their body or whatever. So I think on that level, one augments the other. But for me, when I'm doing karate, I've been doing karate for a while, since I was 18, and I'm 66 now. So for me, karate is like putting on my shirt. I don't think, oh, hang on, how do I do this again? What's that feeling? Where do I go? What should I be doing? I don't do that. I just move. I'm not there with Kobudo. With Kobudo, there's still a bit of myself getting in my own way. I still get in my own way with thinking and working things out and stuff like that. So I can't say I'm completely comfortable with Kobudo. So for me, when I do Kobudo, I try to get it right as I know from observation and instruction. What I've been told is right, and I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get me to behave that way. So, excuse me. So that's, I don't. But for me, they're two separate things. I know they're part of the same culture, and I know in olden days it's said that people did karate and Kobudo in the same dojo and stuff and all that. So maybe that's true. I don't know, but I don't concern myself with any of that, James. I just when I'm training Kobudo, I'm trying to improve my feel for what I'm doing, for whatever weapon I've got in my hand. And and I'm doing the same in karate. I don't rest on my laurels with karate, but I'm just more comfortable with karate because of the amount of time spent doing it. So
sounds to me like you're kind of more interested in the improvement and chasing after getting better. And
for me, not so I can pass a grading. I'm not interested in grades. I haven't been interested in grades for decades and decades. Once I understood what gradings were. So for me, people talk about martial arts, on the fight. Well, for me, the fight is me. I'm fighting me. I'm not fighting you or anybody else. I'm not interested. I've had a lot of fights. It ended up with me being in prison. If anyone's been in prison, they'll tell you it's the biggest waste of a life that you can think of, other than being maybe a drug addict or an alcoholic or something. But so anyone who thinks they're doing martial arts so they can be a big tough fighter, well, dream on. That's what I say. If you're not prepared to do what comes after the fight, after you've beaten that guy to a pulp, well, then you're not going to fight. Well, I've always been prepared to take what comes after the fight. I was when I was younger. I'm no longer prepared to do that. So I don't fight. So for me, training is about not fighting, not fighting someone else. So the fight that exists for me is like, I can't do this stuff. Why can't I do it? I'm looking at that woman over there. She's doing it brilliantly. And I'm looking at that guy over here. They're doing it brilliantly. What's going on with me that I can't do it? So that's where the fight is. And I like that challenge. I still, I'm still an aggressive person. I've always been aggressive, but I don't act on it anymore. Nowhere near. So, for example, there's a kata that a Kobudo kata with Timbe and Roshi, with the shield, so that I practice. Yeah. In that kata, there's a forward roll. So you make like a kamae in shikodachi, and then you turn around and you do a forward roll away, and you come back up on your knee and block with the timbe and strike and stab. So when I was doing that kata, when I was learning that kata, I'm still learning it, but when I thought, oh, forward roll, right? How hard can it be, forward roll? But, at the time, I was like about 62 years old or something. And I hadn't done a forward roll since I was at primary school. So I thought, how hard can it be to do a forward roll? Till I went to do a forward roll. And I've got, a shield in one hand and a sharp object in the other. And I've got to do this forward roll. So, of course, I don't do it very well. And I think I broke my back, and I've snapped my neck, and so I'm in the dojo and back home here in this dojo, and it's a wooden floor, and I'm thinking I'm having this internal argument about I can't do it. Yeah, but come on, you need to do it. Yeah, but I can't. And so then I get some jigsaw mats out because my spine is killing me now with all these unsuccessful forward rolls, and I've hurt my neck and my back and hips, and anyway, so then I get the mats out, so then I start doing them on the mats, still hurting but not as much. I think that I don't know how long it took, but it took a couple of weeks to get that forward roll, then get rid of the mats, and then go back onto the wooden floor. And so now the forward roll is nothing. But that took me, I was in my 60s, I was 62 or something, 63, something like that. About 4 years ago. I like that. I like the fact that I couldn't do something. For the life of me, I couldn't do it. I persevered with it. Now I can do it. So I'm, my age, I still do that forward roll and pop up the other end. And now, again, you look at Takamine Sensei, he does it. I've seen other people in the dojo do it. If I can't do it, what that says something about me, right? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not, I'm not in a wheelchair or anything. I should be able to do this thing. And so even though it's difficult, I do it. I push to do it. So for me, that's what training's about, that's where the fight is, But anyway, hope that answered your question.
Controversial stuff. What do you think's wrong with modern karate now?
Okay, I've got a list. No.
We talk privately quite a bit about this. So
yeah. Look, here's the thing. I think karate, it's like everything else. It's generational, and what attracted me, nearly 50 years ago to karate. If I was a young person now, or if I was me now, looking at karate now, I wouldn't be interested in it. I wouldn't. Excuse me. I wouldn't be interested in it because I think it's developed into something else, and something that doesn't appeal to me. So it appeals to a lot of people because a lot of people are doing it. So that's fine. But for me, there's too much ease, there's too much comfort, there's too much convenience, and there's too much, frankly, there's too much money involved as well. So as I mentioned to you earlier, I used to think that sport was the thing that would change karate and out of recognition, but I don't believe that now. I believe it's commerce. I believe this is this perception people have now that it's okay to make a living out of karate or martial arts. It's okay to do that. They're justified to do it. But the problem with that is the model, the thing that they're selling to people isn't what, you know, the product they're delivering isn't the product they're selling. So what they're selling is Budo, but what they're delivering is convenience, is you know, quick fixes and gratification and pats on the back. So they don't call it a pat on the back anymore now. They call it a like. You know, so people walk around the dojo with their iPads and their phones out. As soon as the instructor's demonstrating, they rush off and get, you know, oh, I want to film it. You know, instead of paying attention and learn, and then struggling with it and learning it, they film it and then they mimic it and they copy it, which is not the same thing. So I think that but you know, I want to qualify that by saying that's what it is now. That's what people want now. And so that's what they've got. And because they're willing to pay for it, there's plenty of people who are willing to step up and take the money. So, well, that's fine. It is what it is. And it's not part of, you know, what I want. So I don't get involved in it. But, you know, it just doesn't appeal to me. And it doesn't appeal to a lot of people I know. But it does appeal to an awful lot of other people. So I think what they do, just like sports people, you know, in the Olympics in a week or so, they say they're doing karate, but, you know, I say they're bouncing around and playing tag. So I'm taking nothing away from their athleticism or their devotion to what they do. It's marvelous to see. But it's, you know, they're using this headline of karate and I just don't. When I think of the word karate, it means a certain thing. When they say karate, it means athletes, coaches, training, personal bests, stuff like that. I don't have a personal best. I don't have a coach. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a sports person. You know, if I have a fight, you're gonna have to kill me or I'll kill you. You know what I mean? I won't have a fight with you over a spilt beer or you cut me off in traffic or something like that. If we're having a fight, it's because you're really trying to damage me and I picked up on that and I will really damage you. That's a different thing altogether from sparring and, you know, having fun and all that lot. So on the other side of that, I don't think karate should always be austere and you know, it shouldn't be boot camp all the time or anything like that. It should be normal, natural. But unfortunately, I think as time goes by, karate has always changed. You know, and I think if you get the generation before me, they will look at me and say, "Oh, yeah, you had it easy." You know what I mean? So, and if you look at the generation before them, they would say, "Oh, yeah, but you had it easy." So I think that's a generational thing. And so I think it's easy to look at what's going on now, the commerce, and you know, really get stuck into it. And on one level I do, because it's just so anti what I think of as karate. On another level, I completely understand it. This is what people want now. This is what people have provided for themselves. So they want to pop online, do a Zoom seminar, believe they've learned that kata, they've paid their money, now they can go and teach it or train it or whatever they want to do with it. They're completely free to mix and match, Oh, I don't like doing that bit. Oh, I don't believe in this bit. So, but all their opinions are based on opinions. They're not based on experience. And if you haven't experienced something, then I argue that you don't know it. You might know about it, but you don't know it. So, you and I could talk for hours about being in Okinawa and what it's like to train in Okinawa. I can't talk to you about what it's like to live in Okinawa because I've never lived there. Most I've spent there in one go would be a couple of months. So if I'd lived there for a few years, then you and I could talk about what it's like to live there. Do you see what I mean? Because we've both got the shared experience. So you get people now, they've got the black belt, they've got the gi, they've got their web page and their podcasts and all the rest of the things they do, but they haven't got the experience. There's a man called Jason Perry he's stationed in Okinawa now at the moment. He's a colonel in Marines. He's the son of Doug Perry Sensei, and anyway, Jason Perry wrote this book. He published a book a year or so ago, and I was reading it. It's essentially about his father, and he called it Old Man's Karate. And he was interviewed recently, and was asked why, where did that title come from? And he was saying about, well, because his dad was training since the late 50s, early 60s or something. And when he had that young man's karate, it was full on. His dad was a Marine as well. And it was full on. And it was about the fighting, and he was going to Vietnam at the time and all that sort of stuff. So it was very real. But now he's an old man. His father's an old man. And so his karate is much more mellow, and it's about how you live well and get balance in your life and all the rest of it, which he didn't have as a young man. And Jason was talking about, or he mentioned how there's a lot of young guys now who talk old man's karate, but they never did. They've never been through that young man's karate. You know what I mean? They never challenged themselves. They never dealt with that hardship, that austerity. They never forged their character that way, like his father did. And yet now they're in their 30s or 40s or something, just a little bit too old to be the athlete and everything, so they don't have to physically prove themselves, but they talk like they did back in the day. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned that, and unfortunately there's an awful lot of that around now, and the internet it gives them a perfect platform to do that. So they're very easy to spot if you know what you're looking at. They're people who've got very hazy backgrounds. When you say, well, who did you train with? Who did you learn from? It's all a bit, and it never quite adds up. It turns out they were training with this famous sensei when they were 4 years old. Well, something like that. So anyway, so there's still, I find that disheartening. But my my cure for that is to not be involved with it. So for a lot, I withdrew from. Well, it's hard to find a physical karate magazine now. I don't think there's any being published anymore. Not many. Most magazines have gone online. So that magazine work that I did for over 30 years, that I could have gone online doing it, I suppose, but I saw too much and had too many experiences. I tired of it, and tired of trying to bolster people's egos. And you mentioned somebody earlier before we started that people get in touch with you. They know you've got a blog, so they get in touch with you and I hope they'll get on the blog. I used to have that with magazines. So that part of human nature hasn't changed, but it's much easier now to satisfy your narcissism. Mm-hmm. You can if nobody will get you, if nobody will invite you, you just make up your own podcast. And then you do your own advertising, you do your own branding. And some of the more professional magazines I worked for, they would say, okay, when I came on board, they would say, right, okay, we need this, this, and this, and this. And I would say, how come? And they say, well, we need to build your profile so that readers start buying the magazine to read your stuff. So they do, not just with me, but with other people. They do that with all the people. I'm not talking about people who send articles in to magazines and, phone everybody they ever know when it gets published. I'm in a magazine. I'm talking about people who get paid to do it for a living. They build up a profile so that people start following that person. So now that's what people are doing now, that with their podcasts and stuff like that, present company accepted, but because you're not chasing anything. This is the irony of it. Look, you're a guy who's gone to Okinawa 20 odd years ago. You've lived there. You've trained with like the top people, and you could be out there doing your seminars and you're this and you're that. And, you've got the grade, you've got this, you've got the experience, you've got all this thing. These are the people drool over, but you've actually done it, but you don't do anything. You don't do that with it. I don't say you don't do anything with it. You don't do that with it. So I'm in a similar position. I've met a lot of these people. I've had all these experiences. I've trained. I've done all this. I've got the grades, the ranks, the titles, and blah, blah, blah. I don't choose to do the seminary things and the this and that with it. So I've got that old man's karate, if you like. But unfortunately, there's people around now who don't. And just looking down here on something, I made a note for something else I was writing. I was just saying, if you're serious about something, what you say and what you do are the same. They're the same thing. And unfortunately, what you see now is a lot of people say stuff, but when you actually watch what they do or you find out what they do, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, people say, oh yeah, I train. I train every day, or I train 5 times a week. And then you talk a little bit more, and what they're actually doing is going to their dojo or their rented hall or wherever they teach, and they're teaching 4 or 5 times a week. They're not training, they're teaching. And you say, oh, but isn't that when you have your students say, oh yeah, but I get in line with them and I train. Well, why are they paying you? If you're standing beside them doing all the stuff you're doing, why give you some money? Aren't you supposed to be out there sort of guiding them? I mean, they've paid you to do that. So the least you could do is do it, not get in. Not get in and do it with them. So, yeah. So I think, there's stuff like that, that karate nowadays is based too much on faith rather than experience. It's too much on opinion rather than points of, having a stand on something. And that's because people are not getting their education, by and large. They're not getting their education face to face, and they're not facing the struggle, and they're not facing the failure. I can't remember the last time I heard of anybody who failed a grading. I mean, it was just so common. It was like a rare thing that you passed the grading. Back in the, here I go again. I sound like the old man saying, "Oh, back in my day." But I would go to a grading. When I took my Shodan in Shitoryu, there was something like, and this was like a national grading, so there were people from all over England. There was something like 40 odd people or something turned up for various downgrades. And I don't know how many, there were probably about 14 or 15 of us going for Shodan. I think about 4 of us passed Shodan. And I can't remember, maybe one guy got his knee down and another guy might got 3rd down and nobody got 4th down. And, do you know what I mean? Like there was like a lot of people and there was just no guarantee that you were coming out with a smile on your face. That's just not the case now. There's almost like, well, when did you get your last downgrade? Oh, really? Well, aren't you due your next one? Yeah, but I haven't been. Oh no, that's fine. You're all right. You've got a dojo. You've got students. You know, you're bringing the money in. So that's it. So there's that kind of stuff I don't like. And unfortunately, all of that stuff pampers to the ego, which is the very thing that people say karate's there to fight against. And yet they're pampering. Yeah, well, it just, you know, and this almost schizophrenia, you know, it's this duality of thinking, whereby, you know, and people might watch this and go, oh yeah, you're doing it now. You know, people where they can see all this problem out there, but they can't see what's going on in here. You know what I mean? So they've got the problems down for everyone. The Chinese say, you know, you can see the splinter in another person's eye, but you can't see the log in your own. So, you know, but that's the difference between Budo and what people are doing now. Budo, you know, I go in the dojo in the morning, nobody knows. Nobody's watching me. I don't put it on my YouTube channel or my Facebook page. I don't have one. I don't even put it on the blog. You know, I had that blog that was very, very popular, you know, back in the day when it was public. And so I went private with that. And but you read that. And, you know, I'm not on there talking about my latest grading or, you know, what I achieved or something. I'm on there talking about stuff that other people are dealing with as well, that I'm dealing with, and other people who are in a similar situation. They're going to their dojo and they're training and nobody knows. There's no fanfare, you know. So when you turn up and you say, yeah, I practice such and such a kata. Yeah, you practice it. It's obvious. Just look at you. You don't say, you know, I get visitors occasionally, not so much now because I'm completely off the radar. But before, when it was a bit more public and people would come and visit, especially when I lived in Tasmania, is a holiday destination. So I would get people coming on holiday. They said, could I come and train while I'm on holiday? Sure. This is our training nights. Come along. So they would come and you know, they're different schools or whatever. And I would always try and put them at their ease and say, look, you know, just we're going to work on this kata now, but you work on your kata the way you do it. And, you know, so I'd say, pick a kata, your favorite kata. What's your kata? And they'd say a kata, and I'd say, okay, let's have a look, you know, let me see. Because sometimes if it was like Shitoryu or even Shotokan based, you know, over the years, I've been familiar enough. I know what Shotokan kata should look like and Shitoryu kata should look like. The fundamentals I'm talking about, not style specific or organization specific. And quite often people would look and say, oh, okay, it's such and such a kata, but I haven't done it for about 2 or 3 weeks, so I might be a bit rusty. And I would say, wow, so how long are you on holiday? And they'd say, oh, 2 weeks. And I'd say, so when you go back to work, are you going to need you know, you'll have been out of work for 2 weeks. Are you going to be a bit rusty at your job? And they would just look at you and say, what are you talking about? Well, this is your kata. You're supposed to be, you know, how can you be a bit rusty or something? Well, this is something you've been supposedly studying for a long time. So why would a couple of weeks off make you rusty? Why are you having a couple of weeks off? But even if you are, what, you know, I mean, you take a vacation, you don't come back to work first day and go, gee, what was this about again? How do I do this? People do it with karate all the time. They let themselves off all the time. I can't do that anymore. I don't do that. You know, I don't do this. I don't, oh, you know, I've got a bad this and a bad that. Well, we all have that. That's part of training, but you work around it. You don't throw it away because you're too lazy to, you know, carry on with it. So I hear that all the time. I hear people, or I used to, I don't now, but I would hear people saying, oh yeah, I don't do this now. I never did like that. You know, great. There's lots of things my sensei said to me that I didn't like, you know, over the years. So what are you going to do with it? you know, you don't really have the choice. You're standing there. I've had 4 sensei in my time. 4 people. I've trained with lots of people. I've been lucky enough to mix and train with people, but I don't consider them my sensei. But I've had 4 sensei who I've really, well, 5 if you, I count, I'm just talking about karate, but I consider Akamine sensei my teacher. I don't know if he considers me a student, but I consider him my teacher. So I listen to him. When he gives me some advice, I go home and I work on it. And next time I see him, if he pulls that out, hopefully I've done something with it that he can see. Do you see what I mean? I don't just go, oh yeah, what we're doing this time. You showed me that kata last time. What am I doing this time? It's not like that. It's like, no, I showed you that. What have you done with it? And that's the trouble. People still make too much of what kind of karate they do. You know, oh, we do Shotokan, we do Goju. Well, I'm more interested in what you're doing with karate, not what kind of karate you do. What you do, it doesn't matter to me with people training Weichiru or Wadaru or Kokushin. It's like, yeah, but what are you doing with it? You know, and well, you're building up your ego, or you're building up your empire of followers, or you're building up your business or whatever. So, although they don't like to call it business now, they don't even call it organizations now, they call it communities. Because it sounds, you know, it's so much more Facebooky, you know, and that's where it's shifted. And I think that's a generational thing, and that's why I'm a bit down on it all, you know. And so it's, people want that, they want that notoriety, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with being known.
Yeah.
You know, they want to be the leader, but they want to be one of the guys as well. Well, you know, you know that, you know, you can get very friendly with your sensei, you know, very close to your sensei and everything, but you're never mates. Do you know what I mean? You're very friendly. You've got history. You can talk about things that happened in families way back and all that lot. You go drinking together. And, you know, you've been to functions and stuff like that. But there's always a line. He's always your sensei. You know what I mean? And
like a parent. It's just trying to, as a parent, you're just trying to build up a child who can.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and yeah, I've seen, you know, I've seen people, they walk up to well, sensei's not, Miyazato sensei's not alive anymore, but as you know, the seniors in the Jundokan. And I've seen people and they've said, like, you know, would it be all right to take a photograph? And they say, yeah, and they walk up and they put their hands around them. And, you know, it's, oh, man, what's going on with you? Like, and I know these people. I know the seniors are the same generation I am now, the seniors at the Jundokan. We're all of a similar age. And I know these people well. I've known them for 30 years. And I know that they don't, that makes them feel awkward. But still people do it. And you know, maybe if they were Japanese would hit them with a shinai or something. You know what I mean? But they're Okinawan, and you know, Okinawan people are very, very easygoing people and don't want to, you know, they don't want to have a confrontation. So if you're behaving poorly, badly, they're kind of sort of like go quiet more than, you know, rather than do something about it, they'll just kind of go, oh, okay, we'll let this, you know, let it go. And but you know, but from an individual's point of view, if you're serious about your karate and you seriously want this person's help, right? I mean, the sensei doesn't need anything from you. They're not interested in, you know, what grade you've become and how many students you've got at home. So they don't want anything from you. I'm talking about old school sensei now, not instructors. And so they don't want anything from you. You're needy of them. And so it's incumbent on you to not kowtow to them and all that, but it's incumbent on you to behave in a certain way that allows stuff to happen. and if you don't understand or work that out, then things don't happen. And the trouble is, you don't even realize things don't happen. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not, it's above you, it's beyond you, and so you don't even know it's gone by, that opportunity's gone by. But you know, modern karate, modern approach, modern generation, they don't see it that way. They want access to everything because they want it, and there are people who will seemingly provide it, you know, so they're the people that they gravitate towards. But it's, you know, it becomes a different thing. The end product is a different thing. So I know about dealing with problems without getting angry, without messing my life up further by all the legal ramifications. I've learned about that through karate. I've learned about that through dealing with problems in karate that I wanted sorted right now, but couldn't be sorted right now because I just didn't have it in me to sort it. So you have to struggle with it, and you have to deal with it. And this guy who's your sensei isn't being helpful, you know what I mean? Because they seem to be pouring it on you even more. But you have to get through that. And that's how I know how to deal with adversity. And I know how to not jump out of my car at the traffic lights because somebody cut me off. And I know how not to fight somebody in the pub because they spilled beer on me or gave me a funny look or passed a silly comment. You know, there's plenty of times in the last 20 years or more when I could have quite easily picked somebody up and thrown them off a balcony. I don't care, you know, so, but I wouldn't do anything like that. I wouldn't do anything like that now. But, you know, I was speaking to somebody else about it, and I think it's COVID, the lockdown, people, you know, for some reason, through another friend of mine, James Hatch, who's all, he's Irish, but he grew up in Canada, but he's lived in Tokyo for over 20 years. And he trained Shito. And I was talking to James about it, I think. No, James got me in touch with some people he knows who in England who did podcasts. So I've done a couple of podcasts over the last few months. And I was talking to some people on one of those podcasts about, you know, people teaching self-defense. And I said, well, you can't really teach self-defense in a real way. You can teach awareness, self-awareness, you know, don't go down that dark alley, don't do this. You can teach that kind of stuff and get people to be a bit more mindful of what they're doing. But confronting real serious violence, I don't know how you teach that, other than maybe joining the military, and then it takes a long time to do that. But certainly in a dojo setting, doing kata and bunkai and stuff like that, I don't think that's real. And one of the hosts said, oh, well, yes, I see, you can't make it real, but you can make it realistic. But I you know, said, well, no, you can't even make it realistic. You can set up these scenarios where, you know, somebody's the bad guy and they start swearing and using the F word and pushing and all, you know, raise the temperature a little bit. But still, everybody knows you're safe, right? You're not going in an ambulance. You're not going to get stabbed. The girl's not going to get raped. Nothing really bad's going to happen, other than they might, you know, somebody might make you feel uneasy or upset, which is a million miles away from facing some guy who doesn't care, who is quite happy to throw you over that balcony or stick that knife in you 15 times, who just doesn't care about the consequences. They're not thinking about it. They're either too dumb, you know, stupid to be able to think, or they know what's coming and they just couldn't care. So now what do you do with that? So people train self-defense with that as the model, and then they do some other scenario, mamby-pamby, he gets you in a headlock, you do this, he does that. But, you know, my experience of fighting, as I'm sure a lot of other people who've fought on, you know, spent time fighting for real, is if you hit me, it doesn't make any difference. It just gets me more mad. So, and at the time, and I've written an article about this years ago called "Getting Hit Doesn't Hurt." When you're having a fight and somebody smashes you in the face, my experience says it doesn't. I don't feel that. I'll feel it later, but I don't feel it then. You know, if you knock my teeth out, I'll just spit them out. You know, because that's what I want to do. I want to get you and hurt you, and so that's what I'm doing. So the fact that you kick me in the groin, great. That's just more. That's 5 more bounces of your head against that wall for kicking me in the groin. It's not like, oh, you've hit me in the groin, I better stop now because this really hurts. So I don't know how you can train for that. And certainly I don't think traditional karate is even trying to do that. I don't think Okinawan karate is even trying to do that. Okinawan karate, as far as I know, is trying to get you to be a kind of person that makes decisions in life that doesn't put you in that place. So you're training not to fight. And so you do that by spending a lot of time facing yourself. So you're given problems. Why can't you do that? They're doing it. I'm doing it. I'm showing you this. Why can't you do it? What is it in you that you can't do it? And so now the fight's in you, right? You got to, you know, your senses asked you to do something. You've got to find a way in you to do it. And you're looking around and there's examples they've learned to do it. So that's the value for me, is that you can literally change your mind from a person who couldn't do something to a person who can, because it's your mind that allows you to do it, you know. Anyway, enough said.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you again. I'm sorry about the my hardware crash. I lost your last interview. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for the interruption when the postman came, but Tim, your book arrived.